Oh my God.
Some of you might be wondering, why would a tea blogger be giving a seminar on social media? I never went to school for it, I don't have any formal training, but social media is where I live. It's how I discover tea, it's how I explore it, and it's how I share it with my friends. Just want to give all of you a basic introduction to some of the main social networks, the do's and don'ts of those. We're going to leave a lot of time for questions, so that way everyone can hear you and do this.
Yes.
So we're going to leave a lot of time for questions, that way you guys have an opportunity to discuss what issues you might be facing in your business, and you can all learn from each other. So by a show of hands, how many people are currently using social media for their tea business? And how many people want to but haven't started yet? Okay, so you could pay a PR firm to handle all of your social media for you. But I'm actually a big believer that that's not the best way to handle things, because it kind of disconnects you from your customers. Nobody knows your brand better than you do. And by giving up the reins, you might also miss out on an opportunity to connect with people on a personal level. As a tea consumer that regularly interacts with tea companies on social media, the interactions that are most meaningful for me, that turn me into a customer, are the ones where I actually feel a personal connection with somebody from that business. Even if it's not the owner, somebody on the staff, to actually feel like there's a real person on the other end, rather than some automated computer, it really makes a difference. So this Seth Godin quote sums up in just 2 sentences exactly how you should be approaching your social media presence. Selling tea often requires a bit of storytelling. Social media enables you to share those stories with a larger audience than ever before. The key to success is connecting authentically. And what that means is to really just be human. I know it's on the internet and it can feel weird for a lot of people, especially if you're not tech savvy, but that's really all it takes to really, run your social media the way that your customers would be attracted to. And when it comes, not everybody here has a brick and mortar store, but I find often online interactions are handled a lot differently. When somebody walks into your store, you wouldn't jump on them like a used car salesman, but that's often how a lot of tea companies actually interact with people online, which is really a big turnoff for most of us, and mostly is not going to do anything as far as growing your business. So social media can accomplish many things for your business. It has the potential to drive traffic to your website. It builds trust and increases brand awareness. You'll be able to keep tabs on your business's reputation and take steps to correct any issues that pop up. That being said, social media is not a magic wand. You won't get results overnight, and increased sales are never guaranteed. Your company's social media presence is just one piece of the puzzle that is your overall marketing strategy. The good news is that it's much less expensive than traditional advertising. So what tea enthusiasts are looking for most online is knowledge. Outside of books, there's still very few resources for us to find information about tea. Making yourself and your company a resource will make you an invaluable part of their tea journey. Everything from your website to your social media accounts should be targeted towards educating your customers. It also means that you must be diligent about fact-checking every piece of content that you share. Quality is better than quantity. Sending a tweet every 5 minutes is not going to help anyone, and it dilutes what you're saying. So when getting started on social media, there are a few things to keep in mind. You should make your handle as close to your business name as possible. I've seen a lot of companies do weird things like include numbers and other things that aren't related to their business name at all, or use abbreviations that are really hard for people to understand or remember. That causes confusion for your customers, and if they're going to talk about you on social media, they're more than likely not going to use the right name if you don't use something that's very simple and easy to remember. Have an easily identifiable profile picture. It can be hard to fit your whole brand logo in there, but it should be something that as soon as somebody sees it, they know that it's your brand. Whether it's, a piece of your logo or something that is related to your branding, or your face. It depends on how you want to run it. If you're using Twitter, never ever leave the default egg. The default egg basically says, I don't know how to do this. Make sure that you fill out your bio. A lot of companies actually neglect to fill out that part. Even things like putting your website in there. I've talked to companies who actually forgot to do that, where customers wouldn't even know how to find your website if you don't put it there for them to locate. Your bio should be short and clear and really tell them exactly what it is that you do. Follow. So there are a lot of people on social media, and if you don't follow anyone, you're never going to get anything out of it. Don't sit around and wait for people to follow you. Start with neighboring businesses and your suppliers, even if you don't already have existing customers. That can help you to form those relationships. Most of the people that I follow on social media, I found because somebody else I know was following them already. Searching terms related to your business can also help you to find customers that are talking about that topic. Advanced search on Twitter can be really helpful for that. You can actually narrow it down by location. So if you run a brick and mortar store specializing in pour tea, if you search for pour and narrow it down to your location, you're going to find your ideal customer that's right by you rather than hundreds of miles away. Adding customers, bloggers, and anybody else who talks about your products is also really helpful. Your images and information about your business should be updated regularly. So whether it's just your header images, your profile pictures, keeping things fresh helps to keep people interested. So there are a lot of social networks out there, and new sites pop up constantly. It's easy to feel like you have to hop onto each and every one of them, but the truth is that it's better to be awesome at just a few than to stretch yourself thin. You're running a business, you have a family, there's a lot of other things that are a priority for you. It's better if you are a freelance photographer on the side. It's better for you to focus on Instagram than try to do every social media network out there. Taking into account your personal interests and inclinations can also help narrow things down. Not even necessarily for yourself, but if you have staff. If you have a staff member that's studying journalism or studying social media or marketing, they're a great resource for you to tap into to help you to run your social media networks. So Facebook is the largest social network. It provides a lot of great opportunities to interact with current and future customers. Photos and long-form posts tend to get the most interaction. Responsiveness is vital. Facebook actually gives your customers the ability to directly message you through your business page. And it's really important that you respond to them right away because it helps them to feel valued. Make an effort to reply to every comment, message, and review that your business receives, whether it's positive or not. If I go to a business's page and I see that they haven't responded to any of their customers' feedback, that says to me that they don't really care what their customers think. One of the biggest mistakes that I see companies make is using a personal profile rather than a business page for Facebook. For a lot of people who are just getting started, that can seem less intimidating, but it actually violates Facebook's terms of service, and they can actually completely delete your page without any warning because you did that. So it's really essential that you do set up your business as a business page. And also, personal profiles are limited to 5,000 friends. I don't think there's anybody here who only wants to have 5,000 customers. So make sure that you fill out as many of the sections of your About tab as you possibly can. The downside to Facebook is that their algorithm does not show everyone all of your posts. So even if I like your page, I'm not necessarily going to see everything that you post. The algorithm is basically based on how often they interact with you, which is another reason why it's really important that you are interacting with them, because it encourages them to engage with you more in the future. You can pay to boost your post, and this can be effective, but you have to very carefully select your target audience. If you just randomly boost a post, it's really not going to accomplish much. I've had businesses boost posts that were links to my blog post about their tea, for example, and they really didn't get any benefit from that because they were too general in their targeting. Pay close attention to your interest tab. This is where you'll find analytics for everything that you share on Facebook. So it will show you how many people see each post that you make. It will show you what your demographic there is. It will show you what gets the most engagement, so that way you can base your future post off of that. So Twitter would be your second largest social network. It's specifically designed for short commentary. So each of your tweets can only be 140 characters. So a lot of times we have to really work hard to say less with more. Searching for terms related to your business, as I said before, is a great way to get started. And the important thing to remember with Twitter is that you have to put an @ symbol before someone's name if you're talking to them. So often I get followed by a tea company and they're thanking everyone, hectically trying to thank everyone who follows them, but they're not using the @ symbol. And what that means is that no one sees any of their tweets. Where if you include that symbol, we get a notification and we know that you're talking to us. It's a lot more personal because it does seem like you're personally reaching out to us. Another really important thing to know is direct messages. Twitter they're basically called DMs. So they're basically a private message, so no one can see them except for you and the person you're messaging. But they are private and should really only be used by a brand when it's something that shouldn't be done in public. Don't DM people and send them a link to your Facebook page asking them to like it. Don't use services that auto DM. Those are really annoying, and most people actually unfollow immediately rather than wanting to engage with your brand. There are ways that you can automate, but that's not a way that most people appreciate. The key to Twitter is conversation. You should be replying more than you tweet. So it's perfectly fine to say, we've got this great sale going on, here's a link to the page. But you should be talking to people way more than you talk about yourself. It can be hard to keep track of Twitter, especially once you get to over 1,000 followers. But Twitter has a great function called lists, where you can actually categorize the people you follow into lists, where it will only show you those people in one screen. It is important to make your list private if you don't want people to know what list you put them in, just in case. For me, that's been really helpful is I have a list for my fellow tea bloggers, I have a list for tea companies, I have a list for industry organizations, and it really helps to make sure that I don't miss out on the people that are important to me. More than any other network, the search functionality of Twitter is invaluable for finding potential customers and keeping tabs on the online reputation of your business. Customers don't always mention your account when talking about your brand, especially if they're complaining. So searching can really help you to spot those problems and address them before they become larger issues. Putting your business name in quotes, just as you would with a Google search, will help you to narrow that down to specifically what's being said about your business rather than just random words that are kind of matching your business name. You should frequently run searches on your business name, your website URL, hashtags and product names, and any other terms that might be related to what you do. The website URL is also important because if you search that, it will show you any tweets containing a URL from your website. So Instagram has a thriving tea community. You don't need to be a professional photographer to know when something looks pretty. So luckily for most of us, tea is very photogenic. It's not hard to do, you don't have to be an expert. Your Instagram should reflect your personality and that of your business. That being said, it's easy to cross the line into TMI territory, too much information. A few personal pictures can help to make you more relatable and make your customers feel more connected to you, but they don't need to know what you have for dinner every night. Sharing pictures of things other than your products helps to keep your account from feeling too commercial. I can tell you that I usually will unfollow a brand if I find that all of their pictures are just their products. It's just boring for the user who's following you. Sourcing trips, if you are somebody who goes and sources your own tea, that's an ideal opportunity to show your customers something they're interested in, and also to help you stand apart because you can show them how you source tea, why you source tea, and all of the behind the scenes things that they don't usually get an insight into. Hashtags make it easier for new followers to find you, but you should avoid using unrelated hashtags. I've seen a lot of tea companies use hashtag paleo, as in the paleo diet. It has nothing to do with tea, and anybody who finds use of that hashtag, rest assured, is not going to follow you because they weren't interested in tea in the first place. As with other social platforms, make sure that you take the time to reply to comments and interact with others. Just as with Twitter, you can reply to people using the @ symbol, but you should avoid using Instagram comments to try to sell your products. I have over 6,000 Instagram followers, so I do get a lot of tea companies who attempt doing that, where they'll comment on my picture and be like, "That's great, you should check out X tea." And I immediately delete that comment because I don't want what I'm doing to be a platform for them to sell inappropriately. So Pinterest is a visual bookmarking site that doubles as a social network. Users share images and links that they find interesting from around the web, organized into themed boards. This site is why you should have top-notch pictures of your products. If you have really beautiful product pictures on your website, it makes people much more apt to want to pin those. If I see something that is something I just really want or want to share, immediately I will pin that onto my Pinterest account. All it takes is adding a short bit of code to your website, but verifying your business account is essential. You don't really need to know a whole lot of HTML, it's just a short little piece that you just add in, but a lot of companies forget to do that part. Users will know that your page is definitely you, so you won't be able to have, say, somebody pretending to be your business, which is definitely something you want to avoid. You'll have access to analytics for all of your pins, so you'll be able to see what's the most popular, you'll be able to see what pins have been made from your website. Usually I make it a habit of going in and thanking anyone who pins a blog post of mine, and that's a great idea for any of you to do as well. People always appreciate that you actually notice that they did something for your brand. Adding Pinterest buttons to your website also makes it fast and really easy for someone to pin a page. And it's much more likely that they're going to do that if it's right there for them. They don't actually have to go and put that onto Pinterest themselves. Use your pins to promote the lifestyle of your customers. So you don't want your Pinterest account to be just pictures of your brand or your products. If your customers are yoga enthusiasts or foodies, feel free to make boards that also contain pins related to those subjects, because they'll also be equally interested in those as well as your products. If someone takes the time to pin your content, as I said, make sure that you take the time to thank them. It only takes a second, but can make a customer for life for you. And so Tumblr is a microblogging site owned by Yahoo. Content consumption there is very different from Facebook and Twitter. It's basically a constant stream of images. There's some text on there, but it's not like a normal blog post, so you don't want to be too wordy, but it can be a great place if you're not somebody who feels comfortable writing, to be able to share your brand and your tea experience with your customers. So it's important to stand out from the crowd. One of my biggest pet peeves is when a company uses the stock layout when you first join Tumblr. You should be customizing it, and it's very easy to do. They have many layouts that you can choose from, but you should be customizing it for the look and feel of your brand, because that's basically a piece of marketing for you to convey that to the customer. So, as I said, Tumblr is very highly visual, so people really like pretty pictures. They're much more likely to get shared and reshared if your pictures are really beautiful. Even if they're not necessarily of your product, you can share things about your neighborhood, things that are related to your business. Usually do go over really well. Give an insider's view. So Tumblr can be a really great place to share things you're not going to share somewhere else. Where if you give something really behind the scenes, there are certain things that happen behind the scenes that are very boring that nobody wants to hear about. But some things that I've seen that people really respond well to. Like I saw a tea company posted a picture of an employee birthday party that they had. And it surprisingly got a lot of comments and likes and shares because people really liked seeing that human side of that tea company. But it's not all about the sale. So some social media platforms are better for selling than others, but Tumblr is not designed as a place to get sales. It's a place for you to build brand recognition. So if I'm somebody who's on Tumblr talking about tea a lot, and I keep seeing your logo come up in my feed, I'm gonna wanna know who you are. I'm not gonna wanna know who you are if all I see is these posts about your latest sale or your new product. It's also really important to interact with people on Tumblr as well as just the same as you would at other social networks. So because Tumblr is a content consumption platform, basically it's meant to share other people's content. So you should be sharing other people's content in addition to your own. Don't just create content. It helps build a relationship with the people whose content you are sharing. And it's an easy way to fill in the gap between your own posts, so that way the entire load is not just on you. You can even add these to your queue so it'll automatically post. So you can set it to say, post twice a day, and you can just load in the post that you want and it will automatically publish those for you. And my latest social media obsession is Snapchat. The main purpose of this platform is to share live, in-the-moment pictures and videos. It's a bit more off the cuff and less polished than Instagram, so it actually helps customers feel a lot more connected to you because they really feel like there's another person on the end of that cell phone that's sending them pictures. The other major difference is that posts can only be viewed for 24 hours. For brands, it's a great opportunity to connect with fans in a very personal way. Behind the scenes content is also really great for sharing on Snapchat. Even for my blog, I use it to share behind the scenes stuff with my readers that I would never really post it on the blog proper. But they have actually I've gotten a lot of really great engagement from them because they really enjoy seeing that behind the scenes, whether it's what tea I got in the mail today or my process for reviewing. They really enjoy getting that insight. That being said, avoid being too personal or sharing things that might be unprofessional. Even though it does only last for 24 hours, they can screen capture what you're posting, so make sure it's something that you wouldn't mind somebody else seeing, just in case. And it's important to think about how to create a story with your posts. Because Snapchat's only there for 24 hours, but you can string posts together to create a story. So you can take a series of pictures that explain something to your customers in a way that you never would have been able to share with them otherwise. And I find that that's really one of the best features of Snapchat. The one downside is that it's not easy for people to find you. There is a third-party site that I've had a lot of success with called Ghost Codes, where you basically add your Snapchat profile in there and You list what category you're in and what topics you're interested in, and it helps people who are also interested in those topics to find you. And I'm not sure if it's working yet, but I have a geotag for Snapchat, so you all may be able to take a selfie with my blog profile. We'll see if it works. Everyone in this part of the building should be able to do that. And I wanted to do that to show you that imagine if you were doing a special event at your business. And it didn't cost me much, it was $25. If you're having a special event at your business, imagine what it would do for your customers if you could do that for them, so that they could take a selfie with your logo, and they would then share that with all of their friends that follow them. That's a really great way to get word of mouth very quickly. So video is also a really great way to share your products and knowledge in an engaging way. The lack of professional equipment is often what holds people back. I've seen that with my fellow bloggers as well as retailers. You don't have to be a video professional. You don't have to have high-grade equipment. If all you have is your iPhone, that's good enough. You can always upgrade later if the cost is justified for your business, but don't let that stop you from actually getting started in the first place. It's very important to make sure that you turn your phone sideways. A lot of people will record video this way, which means most of the screen is black bars that really don't serve any purpose for your customer. So it is really important to make sure that you do that. Periscope, which, where'd he go?
I'm right here.
Oh, okay. So my lovely fiance here is periscoping the talk, and I've been periscoping all expo, and I have a ton of people at home who aren't able to make it here, and they really enjoy getting that chance to experience all of this with us. So Periscope can also be a really great way to share something with your customers, and it's basically best for short, engaging content. There's actually a chat where people can chat and ask questions and talk to you, but it's a little awkward because you're actually basically talking to your phone. So it kind of takes some getting used to, but it is really fun to do once you get the hang of it. YouTube is better for longer, more informative videos. I've seen a lot of tea companies really successfully use YouTube to not only gain customers, but to help educate the customers that they have. Whether it's just tasting one of your teas and comparing it to something else, or helping them understand how to properly brew that tea. A lot of times that content can really help to attract new customers for you in ways you never would have thought of before. So forums can also be a great place to connect with tea lovers. Steepster is probably one of the oldest ones. It's been around a really long time. Users can review teas that they drink as well as post on the discussion board. The major rule of thumb with Steepster is never review your own teas. I've seen a lot of companies do this in an effort to bolster their ratings, but it really just comes off as ew when people do that. Reddit's also a fairly recent forum that's become a great way to interact with people. Reddit is a little bit more particular, I find. It's a little bit of a tougher crowd, as they're really nerdy about tea, but they really don't like being sold to. So it's really important that you are giving value to the community rather than just saying, buy my stuff. The forum on Reddit actually has a 10-to-1 rule, where if you're a tea company, you can only talk about your product once out of every 10 posts that you make. That's kind of their way of ensuring that you do follow that proper etiquette. So it is important to keep in mind. So regardless of the platform, there are some rules that every brand should live by. Be respectful always, even if you aren't being treated the same way by someone else. I know that can be really hard to do, and sometimes, especially on the internet, tone isn't conveyed easily, and some things can be taken personally. There are trolls, which are people who post inflammatory comments for no reason. They exist on every social network because people have keyboard muscles. They feel like if they are not seeing you face to face, they can say whatever they want because they don't have to feel guilty about it because they're not seeing you in person. A person like that, honestly, I would recommend not engaging with. because they're not somebody who's ever going to be a customer. They're just trying to ruffle your feathers or cause problems because they think it's fun. So disengage and ignore them, block them if it's necessary, and try not to take it personally. Blocking people is okay, especially if it's somebody who really is kind of on a mission to harm you in that way. Keep politics and other controversial topics separate from your business accounts. In today's political climate, I've seen plenty of tea companies post things about presidential candidates, and that's not something your customers should ever see in your business feed. If you feel the need to talk about it online, feel free to make a personal account, but never associate your business with something that could turn somebody away from you. It's also important to follow the 80-20 rule. So approximately 80% of the content that you share should be interesting, shareable links and content from sources other than yourself. So it's really important, being in the tea business, we all read lots of articles. We're all trying to keep up to date on things. So when you find something that's interesting, share it with your customers and help them learn along with you. 20% of what you post can come from your website, posts on Instagram, and other sources. But it's basically, think about it, in person, nobody wants to have a conversation with someone who only talks about themselves. So why would you do that to your customers online? Share only what you have permission to share. Using images, text, or any other work that was done by somebody else without permission is plagiarism. This can actually get you in legal hot water, as well as damage your reputation in the online tea community. So, myself and my fellow bloggers have experienced companies that maybe didn't understand how things work online, and they might be new, steal images, steal content, steal text from our blog post. And that's always an uncomfortable conversation to have with somebody, and really makes us much less likely to ever recommend them to anyone we know. So pretty pictures are important, and great looking content is what draws people in. That doesn't mean that you have to be a graphic artist, hire a professional, or spend a ton of money on software. There are several resources online where you can create professional looking graphics for free or for a small fee. Some of my favorites are PicMonkey, Canva, and BeFunky. So all of those sites have free options where you can actually design really beautiful graphics for free, and very basically it's all click and drag. You don't really have to know a whole lot about graphic design. They even have templates where all you have to do is pop in a photograph and you're set to go. I actually use all of those for all of my blog graphics because it just makes it a lot easier. I'm not a Photoshop whiz, but those make it easier for me as an entry-level person to do what I need to do. Oh, sure. So it's PicMonkey. It's a PICMONKEY. Canva. It's a CANVA. And then BeFunky. So it may sound silly, but one of the worst things a brand can do is to unfollow someone who has supported your brand. A lot of fellow bloggers that I know have struggled with this. If we've reviewed your tea or helped your brand in some way, and then we go online and see that you unfollowed us on Twitter or Instagram, it's kind of a virtual slap in the face in a way. It's hard not to take it personally. And a lot of times this happens when a brand has a new social media manager that they feel like they need to go in and clean up the account. It doesn't cost you anything to follow someone, but it can certainly cost you a customer, and even future customers beyond that one person if you do unfollow somebody who helped your brand in the past. And so no business is perfect, and online conflicts with customers can happen. What matters most is how you handle these situations when they arise. Whether it's a negative Yelp review or an angry tweet, these steps can help you to keep things under control. Respond immediately. It's imperative that you answer any complaints as soon as you receive them. Even if you don't have an answer for the customer right now, just reply and say, yes, I see what you're saying. I'm going to get back to you as soon as possible. Just as if somebody was calling on the phone, that would probably be your response. So you should respond in kind online as well. Be personal. So responding in an impersonal way, like redirecting the customer to a form on your website, or just sending them kind of a boilerplate email that doesn't give them any additional information, is almost as bad as not responding at all. It basically makes the customer feel that you really don't care. If there is an error on your part, and a lot of times even if there isn't, apologizing sincerely can be really meaningful and go a long way towards smoothing things over. Putting yourself in the customer's shoes can help with finding the best way to make that happen. Taking the conversation offline is a really good idea. When someone is upset and armed with those keyboard muscles, it can be hard to get through to them. But if you get that same person on the phone, first of all, it's a more personal interaction, but they're often less likely to be as angry or as aggressive as they might be if you were having a Twitter war with them instead. And know that sometimes there's nothing you can do. Random attacks, profanity, and spam are all cases where you shouldn't hesitate to block somebody from your social media accounts. Nothing productive has ever come from engaging with these kinds of individuals. And keeping track of multiple social media accounts can be a lot to handle. I highly recommend using a management tool to schedule posts and keep tabs on your brand's channels. Hootsuite is the one that I use personally, and I've been using it for years, and I found it to be a real lifesaver. It basically enables you to handle all of your social media accounts in one single place. Rather than having to go to each individual website, you can have everything in one spot, and I find I'm much more likely to be able to see everything that I need to see and handle everything that I need to handle. Sure, it's a Hootsuite, so hoot like an owl, and then suite, S-U-I-T-E. And so they actually have a mobile app, which for me, I commute to New York City every day. I spend 2 hours on the train. So using their mobile app, I'm able to handle almost all of my social media for my blog just in those 2 hours. So I'm sure all of you have a certain period of the day where you have time where you're just sitting there waiting, whether you're in the doctor's office waiting for your appointment. That's your opportunity to be able to do those things when you can do them. There's also other ones like TweetDeck and Buffer that are also popular. Scheduling posts like interesting links is okay, and that actually helps you to manage your account and make sure that you are sharing appropriately and as often as you should be. But it's really important to be up on current events. There's plenty of brands who've gotten themselves in trouble because of a poorly timed scheduled tweet. That on a regular day, it's perfectly innocuous, but if something happened in the news that day, it comes off as being really insensitive and can certainly anger your customers. So you'd want to make sure that you do avoid that. That being said, you shouldn't rely on a computer to do all of your social networking for you. I've actually seen a lot of tea companies use Instagram bots lately. And they're really strange because they basically just leave random comments on random pictures that don't make any sense. For most of us, it's just really bizarre, and we will immediately unfollow you if that happens. So, contrary to popular belief, the internet is not a popularity contest. True success is measured by the quality of the connections that you form. There's actually a lot of websites on the internet where you can buy followers, and I've seen companies do that, but to be honest, it's never a good idea. Basically, if you buy followers, you're paying for fake accounts that were created for the express purpose of selling to people to follow you. And that really doesn't provide any value for you or your customers. Engagement is the one number that you should be caring about. Are your fans responding to what you post? Pay attention to engagement rates can help you to determine what works and what doesn't. You don't have to be an expert to develop a social media strategy for your company. Start by having a firm idea of what your brand is and what it is not. If your specialty is artisan oolongs, should you really be tweeting about afternoon tea? Everything that you share paints a picture of your brand for the people who see your content, even if it's just a retweet. Before posting content, ask yourself, is this on brand? Know that your personal voice may not be the voice of your business. Creating an editorial calendar can help you to keep organized and on track. Penciling in certain holidays like National Iced Tea Month, National Hot Tea Month, anything that might be somewhat related to your business that you can utilize to help yourself schedule those posts ahead of time so that you have less of a headache later on. And this can be as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. It could be just a list, or it could be a full-blown planner calendar. It's really up to you. But try not to go overboard on the details, because that's really just wasting what time you could be spending engaging with your customers. Next, you'll need to set goals for what you want to accomplish. So these goals should be what's called SMART. So they should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Rather than, I want more followers, your goal should be more like, I want to add 200 more followers in the next 2 months. Be honest with yourself about where you are and where you want to be. Being ambitious is great, but aiming over the moon will only lead to frustration and make it more likely that you're just going to give up, which isn't good for your brand or your customers. Measure the results and reevaluate. Each social platform has their own analytics, and you should be looking at these as well as your own website traffic in relation to your goals. Not meeting your goal means that either the goal needs to be reevaluated or the method that you use to achieve it needs to be. I would say the biggest struggle a lot of companies have with social media is, I'm always asked, well, how many sales is this going to get me? The thing is that social media doesn't do that. There's really no way to quantify exactly how many sales you get from that, so that's not really an ideal goal for you to set. Okay, and so to wrap this up, these are the rules that I try to abide by when it comes to social media. No one is perfect, but keeping this in mind will help make sure that you're headed in the right direction. Be human. No one likes interacting with a robot. Your brand is no different. Behave the way that a normal person would behave, and not one with a megaphone. Be social. What is social media without being social? Never forget that your main purpose is to interact with others. Be respectful. Your brand's social media account is a direct reflection of you and how you operate. Ignore the trolls, but respectfully address real concerns from your customers in a meaningful way. Be responsive. You should be replying to each and every reply, comment, review, or mention your brand receives. Be creative. Use resources available to you to make unique and engaging content. Don't let the fear of not being good enough stop you. And be a connector. Social media is the ultimate people connector, and you can be a conduit. Make introductions in the same way that you would when networking in real life. When we were all at the networking reception last night, and you have your friend who should meet this other friend, you can do the same thing on Twitter or Instagram or any other social platform. So social media is a huge topic, but these basics should get you off to a great start. I've shared this presentation on Google Drive at the link on the screen, and basically if you go there, you'll have access to the presentation as well as additional resources with links to all of the sites that I've mentioned at the end during the presentation. I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions, so please feel free to jump in. I'd love to hear about what issues you might be struggling with.
How do you know where's the line if somebody has, say, a sharing Facebook share button on their page? Is that okay to share without asking, or do you still need to ask them if you can share their content?
Sharing that way is fine because Facebook will tell everyone that you shared it from them. So it's really about giving credit in a way. If you downloaded my picture from Facebook and then put it on your page without letting anyone know that that was where you got it from, that's where there would be issues.
Tiny URL I notice up there. Is that something that you use for Twitter and those?
Sometimes. Hootsuite actually automatically shortens URLs, so usually that's what I'll use when posting on my own accounts. But Tiny URL is this free little website where basically you can put any URL in and make your own tiny URL for it. So rather than put the big long Google Drive link on there, I figured that would be better to do.
Hi. Basically, out of your 6,000 Instagram followers, how many do you actually follow, and why? Because the one thing with Instagram that I found very interesting is that the very successful Instagram accounts have 25,000 followers, and they might be following a very small number.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm following about 2,000 people. For me, because I'm a tea blogger and that's really all I ever care or talk about, I only follow tea accounts. So unfortunately, if there's somebody who is following me that is interested in what I'm doing, but they don't post anything related to tea, I really am not interested in seeing their posts, so I won't follow back. And most of the time people are okay with that. Instagram's pretty transient, not everyone stays following everyone forever, so I haven't really had anybody get offended by that.
Do you have any sources or something that you can share regarding demographics for each of these types of different connections?
I don't have sources for the demographics, but basically they're kind of based on each individual social networks, what they claim to be their number of followers, number of users, I mean.
Is there any way to post on, I know some of these you can link to the others so you can save some time by posting on one and it links to the others. Can you link to all of them?
Sure. There's definitely a lot of ways. One tool I utilize is called IFTT.com. It's called basically if this then that is what the abbreviation stands for. So basically you can set up triggers that if I post a blog post, then it's going to share it on my Facebook page. And that helps with a certain amount of automation. You don't want to do it too much. And sharing Facebook links on Twitter usually comes off a little weird. A lot of people don't like that. But it can help to kind of free up your time so that you're not spending your whole day just sharing links on all of your networks.
So when you look into your followers, right, is there any specific content that you created that you know that will really work? So we can take, as an example of what type of things we should be using on social that generate engagement among them?
Sure. It's different for every account and every brand. For me, it's basically anything remotely related to tea, people like it. So whether it was the matcha donut I had for breakfast today, or the tea leaves that I finished drinking yesterday, as long as it's kind of on brand, or like related to what you're doing, if somebody's following you, it's because they like what you're doing. So I would say, you'll see as you post what gets more engagement and what doesn't. For me, my day job, I work at Tivana, and I find a lot of my Instagram followers don't like that. So that is one thing I've kind of cut back on just because I found a lot of people, most of my Instagram posts will get maybe 200 likes and those will get like 25. So that's usually your big indicator.
You didn't mention anything about LinkedIn for business.
I didn't mention anything about LinkedIn. For me, I haven't gotten a whole lot of value out of LinkedIn. It's really more of a professional network. So it's more for all of us that are in the same business to connect because we have things in common. Where your customers aren't necessarily that same person. They may not have anything close to what you are doing professionally. So they're not necessarily interested in that. I find a lot of people add you on LinkedIn for no particular reason. They just like to have a lot of people that they follow or that follow them. So for me, that just isn't something that I've found useful.
Hi, Nicole. Would you, from all the folks you're following, would you have maybe a half dozen examples of really good tea folks that are doing social media super well?
Sure, absolutely. One in particular, there's a corn company based in China called White 2 Tea. He is on most social networks, but his accounts are very clear about what his brand is and what he does. But he also shares a lot of things in a personal way where customers feel like they know the owner of the company. He's on Snapchat sharing what tea he's drinking, playing what music he's playing in the background, sharing the alcohol he's drinking with the tea farmer at China at 2 in the morning. So giving that insight to customers, I find, draws people to him in a really nice way. There's another one called Yunnan Sourcing that I found. He did a YouTube Q&A series where they were actually really lengthy videos, but he basically answered whatever questions his customers had about tea. And that really, I saw a huge amount of response from customers and people that never were interested in purchasing from him before that.
Can you repeat those names?
Oh, sure. So the first one was white, like the color, 2, the number 2, and then tea. And then the second one is Yunnan Sourcing.
Hi, Nicole. I was just wondering, what's your take on reposting content that's, say, maybe a year, or like educational content, or just content you think might be, reviving it?
Oh, sure. That's absolutely fine. So the great thing about social media is it is so constant. If you post something today that you shared a year ago, most people who are following you now and looking now will have never seen that past content. So I'll even do that with my own blog, that I'll go back. I've been writing about tea for 8 years. So a lot of my readers just found me, and they never would have found that older content or received value from it if I didn't reshare that old content. It can also help if you, say, use your old content to answer a question. So if you're going to write a blog post on your company's page, answering a question, you can include links to that past content that helps to answer that question.
Hello, Nicole. What's your ratio of new blog posts or new content versus reblogging someone?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know my own ratio. I probably should. But I'm not a business, so it's a little bit different. For me, I have, every week, I have a blog post where I only share links to other people's blog posts. And as small and I thought insignificant as it is, I found that people found a lot of value in it. And on the rare instances that I forgot or didn't get around to doing it, they actually got really upset. So, sometimes it can be something really small like that, but you definitely do want to make sure that you are resharing, whenever I find a tea company that has an interesting article or there's something that pops up in my Google News reader about tea, I'll usually share that with my readers too. It kind of just depends on how often I find interesting content, because it's a little bit different for me since I have a very focused tea blog.
One more question. Somebody over here. Never mind.
So how much time a week do you spend on your social media activity?
Quite a lot. Again, I live on social media because basically where I live, I don't have local tea friends, so I spend a lot of time on social media because I really want to talk to other people about tea. So I would say probably a good 3 hours a day. For me, that's a lot, but it all depends on you and what you're able to do. You don't have to be on there all the time. You don't have to be posting all the time. As I said, like lists and tools like Hootsuite can really help you to narrow down exactly what you care about and who you want to be interacting with and whose posts you want to see, which helps to keep things from getting watered down. I find a lot of times, like in retail stores especially, I have people tell me that they don't have time for social media. But then I say, well, in between customers, because we don't all have a constant stream of customers, that's a perfect opportunity for you to just quickly hop on Hootsuite and see what's going on. And even if you just reply to 1 or 2 people, that can actually be a lot of interaction by the end of the day. A lot of questions and not everybody got to ask, so if you do still have some, please feel free to email me at Nicole@teaformeplease.com.